Stop. Before you scroll past this, I need you to watch what happened in this moment. A goalkeeper. 40 years old. From a nation so small, most people couldn't find it on a map. He just stopped Spain, European champions, one of the greatest football teams ever assembled, almost single-handedly. The stadium is erupting. His teammates are rushing toward him. The Man of the Match award is being handed to him. And he collapses to his knees and breaks down crying. Not from joy. Not from relief. From heartbreak. Because the one person he wanted in that stadium more than anyone else in the world, his mother, wasn't there. A last-minute visa issue. A financial wall that no amount of heroism on a football pitch could knock down. His mother watched her son's greatest moment alone, thousands of miles away, separated from him by paperwork and poverty. And his grandparents, the people who actually raised him, who poured everything into this man, they passed away years ago. They never got to see this. So when Vozinha fell to his knees on that World Cup pitch, he wasn't celebrating. He was grieving. He was carrying every person who should have been there and wasn't. Right there, in front of the entire world, with cameras zoomed into his face and 60,000 people cheering around him, he was completely alone with his pain. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at a goalkeeper the same way again. Let me tell you something about modern football that nobody talks about enough. This sport has become obsessed with prodigies. Lamine Yamal was playing for Spain at 16. Gavi was at Barcelona before he could legally drive. Scouts are combing through underage academies looking for the next generational talent. The entire infrastructure of global football is built around one belief: if you haven't been identified by the time you're a teenager, you've already missed your window. Vozinha didn't become a professional footballer until he was 25 years old. Let that sink in. In a sport where most careers are winding down by 32, Vozinha was just beginning at 25. No elite academy background. No wealthy club investing in his development from childhood. No country with a multi-million-dollar football infrastructure behind him. Just Cape Verde, a cluster of volcanic islands off the coast of West Africa with a population of 500,000 people and a football federation running on a fraction of what Premier League clubs spend on their laundry bills. And 15 years after turning professional, at 40 years old, on the biggest stage in world football, he became the best player on the pitch. He said it himself, through tears, "We work in life to have moments like this. This is a reward for all this journey." That's not a motivational quote. That's a man who carried 15 years of doubt, rejection, and grinding through lower leagues, through moments when the world had already written him off, and he's holding all of it in his hands at once. Now let's talk about what actually happened in that match. Because if you haven't seen it, I need to paint this picture for you. Spain came into this game as one of the tournament favorites. Their squad is frightening. Lamine Yamal on the wing, arguably the most exciting young talent on the planet. Pedri pulling strings in midfield. A team that doesn't just beat opponents, they suffocate them. They pass teams into submission. They create chances in waves. Cape Verde had one answer to all of it. Vozinha. Save after save. Positioning so sharp it looked supernatural. Reading Spanish attackers like he'd studied them his entire career, because he had. Every one-on-one, every cross into the box, every moment where Spain looked certain to score, he was there. Calm. Focused. Immovable. A 40-year-old man, built not in some elite European academy, but through years of grinding in relative obscurity, stood in that goal and made himself into a wall that one of the greatest attacking sides in the world could not break through. Man of the match. Not as charity. Not as a feel-good story. Earned, save by save, minute by minute, year by year. But here's why this story is bigger than just one man and one match. Football is at a crossroads right now. The global infrastructure is evolving, and nowhere is that more visible than in what's happening with US soccer. MLS academies are expanding. The USMNT development pipeline is being restructured to identify talent from non-traditional backgrounds, players who missed early academy windows not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked access. Financial barriers. Geographical barriers. The kind of invisible walls that don't show up in any talent assessment but eliminate entire generations of potential stars before anyone ever sees them play. Vozinha represents every player that system failed and then outlasted. Cape Verde, Jamaica, Tajikistan, Kosovo. Nations that the traditional football world barely glanced at are now producing players who are forcing the world to pay attention. And slowly, the sport is beginning to build structures that don't just reward the privileged early developer but also catch the late bloomer, the grinder, the player who needed more time and more chances to find his moment. Vozinha's story isn't an anomaly. It's a reminder of how many stories like his we've already buried under the assumption that if it didn't happen early, it wouldn't happen at all. So where does this story leave us? A 40-year-old goalkeeper. An island of 500,000 people. A mother who watched her son's greatest night through a screen instead of through her own eyes. Grandparents who never got to see him arrive at this stage. And a World Cup moment that the entire world watched that will be replayed and remembered long after this tournament is over. Vozinha didn't cry because he was weak. He cried because he had carried so much for so long that when the moment finally came, the emotion had nowhere left to go but out. That is what 15 years of not quitting looks like. That is what believing in yourself when the world has stopped counting on you looks like. That is what football, real football, actually is. Not just tactics. Not just transfers. Not just trophies. It's a 40-year-old man on his knees, sobbing for his mother, grieving his grandparents, and somehow, in all of that pain, being the best player on the pitch. If this story hit you the way it hit me, like the video. Drop a comment below and tell me which moment from this got you, because I know I'm not the only one feeling this. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Because this channel doesn't just cover football. It covers the humans behind it. And there are so many more stories like this one waiting to be told.